Welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's a certified sociologist exposing shame for what it is, no other than Miss Mandy Hart.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Miss Mandy on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, I am a certified sex and relationship coach or intimacy and relationship coach. I work with people primarily around shame. I find that that is kind of the thread that shows up in in all of uh, these areas around the things that are hard to talk about in relationships, hard to um, grasp in ourselves, and it's interesting how it manifests. And so I like to expose it and figure out a way to deal with it more productively, more effectively, with compassion. And um, I feel like it's such a broad topic, but it's something that everybody really can relate to. So today we're going to talk about how that shows up when it comes to porn, and that's really hard for people to talk about. So I hope that we can get into it and get get into some good stuff.
Indeed, good stuff. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Mandy. Thank you. So tell us, let's start by defining terms. When
Yeah.
we talk about the real impact of porn, what are the documented evidence based harms and what are the more ambiguous or correlative effects that are often mistaken for caution?
So it's challenging to talk about it in terms of research based evidence because it's such a taboo thing that people don't necessarily want to be fully honest about what they watch or what their habits are around porn. So any self reported data is, you know, going to be, I don't want to say flawed, but it's going to have its flaws in a lot of ways. And it's really easy to bias those results. So it kind of depends on what research you're looking at and who the source is, because that can sort of guide the narrative, where there's these efforts that are very anti porn and people question the agenda. And then there's efforts that maybe are more explorative, but then the information is kind of lacking. Um, so I would say overall, the body of evidence is probably really not very robust in terms of strong uh, methodology. Um, but the anecdotal evidence and the things that I've seen just in the work that I've done is pretty compelling. So I'll speak to that, and then I'll leave the evidence, the research based evidence, kind of aside because it's tricky, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's 100% reliable. Um, so when it comes to the anecdotal evidence and things that I've seen, I would say there's a lot of questions and confusion around what porn addiction is and whether it even really exists. And there's questions about whether or not watching porn is considered cheating if you're in a relationship. And there's questions about what it does to our desires, and does it impact our desires and maybe make us want things that we otherwise might not have ever desired had it not been for the influence of porn. Um, and probably most importantly, although those are all important aspects, but one of the big concerns in relationships, especially, are the ways that it manages or sets expectations. And that's huge. I see that a lot. And it's concerning to me as a coach because I I have seen the ways that it has contributed to actually harmful behaviors. And that is not to shame it in any way. I'm not anti-porn, but I am very pro communication. And I think when people have expectations based on the things that they've seen in porn, they maybe don't fully communicate as much as they need to about consent and boundaries. And then they make assumptions about what sex is supposed to be, and that leads people astray. So those are the big main things I would say. And then when it comes to how shame contributes, it's I've seen a lot of people kind of spiral from the shame that they have around all of these issues. And instead of taking positive actions to improve, their relationships or just their own selves, they kind of like disappear deeper into the harmful behaviors and don't address them in productive ways because they don't know how to talk about it. So that's it. And I mean, that's a lot right there. Did you catch all that?
Yes, definitely. And thank you for empowering answer, Miss Mandy. The porn landscape has changed dramatically with free hardcore and algorithm
Mhm,
driven
mhm,
content. How
mhm.
has you shifted the potential for harm compared to a pre internet era?
So I'm 39, and I started watching porn pretty early on, to where I was watching like 80s and 90s pre-internet. We're talking videotapes, like VHS tapes. Um,
Hmm.
and I started dating, I guess, early on as well. I was like 13 when I got in my first relationship, and it was with an older um, boy. And then I always kind of dated older guys until I was in my mid 30s. And what I this is in my personal experience, but also a lot of things that I've seen is people in like Gen X, these generations that grew up without access to internet porn, where it was just, you know, anything you could want to see and more just at your fingertips, like so on demand, so uh, like excessive almost, like with the ways that, internet has just increased the accessibility. I would say the the intimacy and reliance on communication was there pre internet porn, where people had to like figure things out a little bit more on their own, or if they were lucky enough to have sex ed. Um, but, I say we because I kind of lumped myself in that since I got started kind of early. But I think, even my generation was affected by the internet porn, like early days. Um, with without all of that access, it's like kind of like how we had to go to the library to do research for papers in school. But now people can just use the internet. They don't have to like take the same they don't have to put in the same amount of labor and effort because it's just right there. It's in our pockets. We've got cell phones with all this information. Well, porn is the same way. It's it's like sex ed for people in a lot of ways, and it's got everything. You don't really have to ask questions or talk to people or um, go further than your own bedroom to get everything you need and more. So I feel like it takes away from the effort, and when you don't build those skills of knowing how to communicate, knowing how to ask questions, even just being curious, then it's like you skip all these steps. And in relationships, again, that goes back to what I was saying before about it kind of leading to harmful behaviors because you just kind of exist in your own bubble and you make assumptions and you don't know how to interact like with your partner. And that's what I'm seeing. I kind of went on a tangent. I feel like because this is such a loaded, I feel like you asked such a loaded question um, that I feel like I might have lost sight of what where I was going with this. But I really think it's contributed to a lack of social skills around sex because there's just too much. There's like so much that it doesn't leave enough to curiosity. And when you don't have that, then you don't know how to ask questions. Does that make sense? I feel like I don't I've
Makes
never
sense.
okay.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Makes sense, Miss Mandy. And a core concern is the effect on the brain. Can you explain the
Mhm,
neuroscience in simple
mhm.
terms?
Yeah.
How does a frequent consumption of high stimulation porn affect the
Mhm,
brain's reward system?
mhm,
And how does it differ from, say, a gaming or social media
mhm.
addiction?
So I think it's really similar to a gaming addiction where you have that reward. Now, it's actually a little different because when you play games, you actually have like a challenge and you have to have some skill to, beat the level or or whatever. I mean, I haven't played games since like Mario, and so I know the landscape of gaming has gotten so intricate and interactive, and it's almost like you're having like an experience, like you're in the movies and you're a part of it. And so there's a lot about that I have never experienced. I have very little knowledge of in terms of just how involved it is. But that's the thing, it is involved. With porn, you are a passive participant. I mean, you might be masturbating, but you're not doing anything really other than clicking and maybe searching terms. Sometimes you can spend hours just looking for the exact perfect video. So there might be some effort in terms of the search, um, but otherwise you're basically just you're a voyeur. You're watching. It's like watching TV. It's a very passive um, activity. And when you're so passive and you're getting this experience of feeling like you're having sex or you're getting sexual gratification from not from like a low effort, high reward activity, then it's like it's like taking drugs. It's this I'm not trying to, I'm comparing it you could compare it to anything that gives you a hit of endorphins or dopamine. Um, so when I compare it to drugs, I don't even mean to, like, I could compare it to running, I could compare it to eating, just the feeling that you get of like gratification or satisfaction. You get it so easily with porn and you get it so quickly. And um, and there's it's low effort. So what that does to your brain is it's also very visual, so it's not interactive. So you're missing a lot of that sensory experience of having sex. You are missing out on the scent of a person, the smell of another physical being, the sounds of a physical being, the feeling of their breath, the feeling of their touch. You don't get any of that. You're just getting the visual sensory experience. So it's very um, one dimensional. And when you get such a high reward for that, it can make it very um, overwhelming if you do end up in a situation where you're with a partner. And like I see this a lot where people love porn, they love to masturbate to porn, they can go all day, they can edge, and they can last for hours. But then when they find a partner, they can't experience, like, they might be aroused, but they can't experience physical arousal. So maybe if you have a penis, you can't get an erection, or um, if you have a vagina, you maybe can't, enjoy penetration, or touch is too stimulating, like you get overstimulated. And I see a lot of panic and anxiety because you don't know what to do now that you have this other person who's participating. It's too much, it's overwhelming to your senses. So the the neurology of it is this, it's almost like you could think of it in terms of expectations. Your brain is expecting this high reward for very little effort. And then when you're in a situation where now you have a person and you've got to put an effort, your brain doesn't quite know how to engage with that. And it just causes this like disconnect or dissociation. Not in every case, of course, but that's sort of like the extreme. um, you know, can see that, especially when you have somebody who's been watching porn from a very young age, like very young, and that's really all they know. It it's scary. I don't want to sound like, you know um, what's the word, like dooms. Like, I don't want to say it's this awful thing, but it's something that I think needs attention and needs more conversation, and certainly more education, um, because I think it can get out of hand.
So, Miss Mandy, as certified sexologist, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Uh, as a coach or for my clients?
You can do both.
As a coach, I would love to, be able to work one on one with people, but eventually maybe make a bigger impact. I'd love to maybe even contribute to that body of research by publishing. Um, but we'll see. That's definitely a long term goal. And for my clients, I want to help people really connect with themselves and be honest with themselves about what they want, um, in a relationship and also just in life, and learn how to have better relationships, better communication. And when I say better, I mean healthier, more satisfying, um, and and be able to carry that over into all aspects of their life. So I don't want to just help people, you know, like get the girl or get the guy or have sex. And, I want to help them know what to do after they get the guy or the gal. And I want to help them be able to keep having great sex for the rest of their lives.
Well, good luck to your goals, Miss Mandy, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a certified coach?
Um, I would say find what works for you. For me, it was the Somatica Institute. I got certified through them, and I really believe in their philosophy. But there's lots of different approaches, and if there's something else that calls to you, I would say follow it. Because if if you're being true to yourself, that's how you're going to be able to help your clients be true to themselves.
Indeed. And thank you for that advice. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. She has a book. I think it originally might have been a lecture. It's short, but it's called Men, Women, and Worthiness, and it's all about how shame affects us. She's a big researcher on shame. That's her. It's like one of her biggest topics of interest, and I think that book is really, really good at helping you realize when you are shaming yourself, and and then figuring, like, she gives tools on what to do to break out of that spiral. So that's a big one. And then I also really love Emily Nagoski's Come As You Are. It's written more for um, cis hetero women, but I think it applies. Everybody, I think, can get something from that book. And if you want to really look at the up to date research, she's. I think that book has. That's it's that's it. That I mean, she's got all the updated research when it comes to the field of human sexuality. And so that with the Brene Brown book, I think is really helpful for people to understand their own sexuality and their own desires and be in touch with them in a way that's not shaming, which I think is so important. So those are the two I would say.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for that recommended book, Miss Mandy. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101, movie 101 review, music 101, science 101, our fourth season, sex 101, science 101 in its second season of my baby podcast, law 101, mental health 101, and Bible verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Mandy, finally, if you could leave our audience with one central, compassionate takeaway to replace a common narrative of fear, what would it be?
Fear is an opportunity, it's an invitation to learn something about yourself. And I would say, whatever it is, it's scary, but you'll come out the other side one way or another. And if you don't try, you'll never find out. So it can be hard, but if you do it compassionately with love for yourself, you'll have a soft landing. So read that book, check out that book, and learn really just how important it is to love yourself and give yourself compassion. That that's what I want for everybody, is to know how to give yourself compassion, because you could face anything when you have that.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Mandy. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, I have a blog that I've been working on. So please, if you're interested, you can subscribe. Um, and if you're wanting to do some work with me, you can go ahead and schedule a free discovery call on my website. Um, Email me or fill out the contact form if you want to get in touch or have questions. Otherwise, I hope to see you on my blog because that's what I'm working on right now and I'm really excited about.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Mandy Hart because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy will rise. So, Miss Mandy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.